I would like to invite the next speaker, okay, Dr. Arun Lakhotia, and I'm sure with the conversation that has happened so far, he would highlight on the solution side of it, the father side of the problem.
Sanjay, I want to thank you for inviting me to this panel. Much appreciated. Folks, a quick introduction. I'm a professor at the University of Louisiana at Lafayette. I've been in the US for about 35 years, and I've been a professor for maybe about 30 years now. Uh, when we look at a system in the sense of a control system, like if some of you are probably electronics folks or mechanical engineers, when you look at a system and we want to define the state of a system, we typically look at a position where the system is at a certain point in time. But beyond that, we also look at the rate of change of the system. What kind of a velocity, if you see how the system is changing, how fast the system is moving in terms of velocity. And we also look at the rate of change, the acceleration of the system. So when I look at India, especially having left so long back, and I look back, and I don't look at just the point where the system is, as in where the state of the system is, where the country is today. I also look at the rate of change and the rate of change. And what I see is enormous. It's just amazing what has happened over the period. I've left the country, I've come back, and it's completely phenomenal. There are changes all across, changes in the way people think. I think that's the most significant change. Just the way people think about their role in the society and what they believe they bring to the society, how they can change. There's a change in the political atmosphere in terms of what we expect as people from our politicians and what the politicians think they should be producing. I see a change in how fast we have absorbed technology. There's a complete change from when I was here with the rotary phone, and now we have smartphones in the hands of pretty much street people selling things on the street. It's an enormous change. So when we look at the rate of change, I do feel that going forward it's extremely positive. Yes, there are a lot of problems. There are a lot of problems in every society, and where we stand today, there are enormous problems in cybersecurity. In particular, the rate in which we absorbed and adopted the electronics and communication medium, and the issues that they have. I know there's a lot of issues there, but I also feel that the way the society has been changing and the rate of pace of change, I am positive. I feel that as a society, India and other places, but in particular India, will transform in the next 5 years, maybe the next 10 years, and it'll be an extremely secure place. Now, in order to look at change, then we ought to look at things that you can maybe do today. Change don't happen in by revolutions. They're incremental. So you can look at things what you do today. Maybe look at things what you might do tomorrow, and maybe the day after, in some sense. It's over a period of time. So think about things you can do today, as in literally today, when you step out of this meeting and look back and say, hey, what is this little one thing I can change so that maybe my environment, my business, my own self, I could be secure. And from that perspective, maybe I can ask a question to the community and maybe get a sense. Are there people who here who manage the security of their organizations, the computer security of the organization? Anyone here? No, we don't have security folks here, looks like. Okay. People who use computers in their daily life? Pretty much everyone here, right? You got and so of course, if you are using computers in your daily life, you have a machine. You have a lot of computer identities. You probably have an identity on a Flipkart. You probably have a Gmail account. You probably have an Amazon account, right? You have a lot of computer identities, right? And how many of you have different password on every identity that you have? A good number of people, which is very nice, but that also means there's a significantly larger number of people who don't necessarily have a different password on every identity. By every identity means you have a different password for Facebook, for Gmail, for Flipkart, for whatever account you have, a completely different password. And from the point of view of security, if you want to do anything today as a as a nation, as your own little house or as your business, maybe the one small thing you could do is have a change of password, just different password. Now it's a complete pain to say, well, I gotta maintain, I got 50, 100 accounts, and now how do I manage different passwords? What do I do about passwords? Having too many passwords itself could be a security hole because you're likely to write the password somewhere. Now you gotta, instead of keeping it in mind, you gotta write it down somewhere. So now you need a mechanism to somehow manage your different passwords. And it turns out there are tools available. There are actually tools available to manage passwords. And there are also just principles, like if you follow certain principles, you can manage a whole lot of passwords, but without writing them. Now, I have another question. Since you all manage you have computers, how many of you are admin on your own computer, where you log in and you are administrator, you can install everything? People who are admin, right? Pretty much everyone, anyone who is not an admin on their computer, that's the harder. There are few people who are not admin, and that's because you have a computer from your business, I guess. You don't have admin. And I think that's one of the second thing you could do is as simple as that. Even if you have admin privilege on a computer, which sometimes you need, when you work on the computer, don't use the admin privilege. It's as simple as that. You have two accounts on your own machine. One is the admin account and second is a non-admin account. Pretty, very simple change. You can do today. And why is that significant? Because when your machine gets hacked, if and when it gets hacked, and maybe it's already hacked, which is not unusual either, the first thing is that the malware, when it comes on a computer, to do anything significant, it needs an admin access. Something significant, it has to be admin because it's going to make certain changes on your machine. And if you don't have admin access, you have almost stopped. You put a significant hurdle in the front of the malware. It's not to say that the hurdle can't be jumped, but you put a little massive barrier right in front. Very simple. It's two simple things. That's what I think we can look at in general. There are more things you can do today at relatively zero cost, just by education and by awareness, in terms of how we can bring security. So when we talk about projection, what should we do as a nation? Maybe break down the problems and what is it that we can do today? And that part of that, what you can do today is increase in awareness and with relatively minimum cost. Now, what can we do tomorrow? If you look at the security landscape in terms of people producing technologies for security, and I'm one of the person who just recently entered the market as a vendor, a technology vendor. It turns out that it's just littered with lots and lots and lots of technology. So you get firewall. So firewall blocks access in a certain way in a certain point of entries. You have password management systems, IDSs and stuff. They have they do some kind of another way of blocking breaches. You have antivirus systems. They have yet another way of some other things that they block. You have patch management system that is littered with, you go into the market, there's minefield of so many little things. And if you are worried, really paranoid about security, you're going to go and market, you're going to find so many different things and you won't know what all do you really need. So the missing piece, at least I see from the industry perspective, is a way to have an assessment of your environment to be able to understand what are all the possible various points of entries and mechanism how an adversary can take advantage of your system, can penetrate the system, and have a more holistic method of all of the various technologies that you need and mechanism to connect all of them to protect yourself. And it's not something you can do today, but it's something we can reach out for because that requires a little bit better assessment method of assessing your environment to understand how an adversary operates, to understand the mechanisms the adversary would use to penetrate your environment, and then figure out what kind of technologies you need to protect your environment. That's, I think, is a reasonable second step. It's a little longer term. And in terms of what can you do day after, I believe if we look at security as our individual problem, you as an organization are responsible for managing your own environment and security. I think that's important. Of course, you are responsible. But if you consider security as individual problem, and each person has got to solve their own problem, each for himself in some sense, then I think we're missing a big picture. I think security we ought to look at it as a social problem, as a whole society's or a national problem. And or if you reduce it down, if you're living in a mohalla or some sort of colony, the security, it's not just your own house that you have to secure. You have to have a notion of security of the colony. When you talk about security of a colony, you say it doesn't help me if my walls and my house is secure. If my neighbor's house is not secure, I'm in equally big trouble because someone could penetrate that environment and jump my fence. So I think what we need to look at is a mechanism for us to come together to share information, share knowledge, or work out in a notion of supply chain relationships. Understand the security of not just of your environment, the whole security of a supply chain. And that's something I think requires some agency like NASCOM or agency like you have IESA that brings together organizations, brings together say industry body that can come together and look at security of the whole industry. So my takeaway, at least what I present, I think some of the challenge that Sanjay has put forward for us is what can we do now? What can we do? What can we look forward to? How do we come together as individuals, as groups, as industry, and what kind of targets we can set for ourselves? I break it down into 3 parts. What can I do today? What can I do tomorrow? And what can we do day after? And I'm giving you some place to start on that. Okay, thanks.